Okay, we'll call
The roll?
the roll for, the date is the 18th of September at 12 o'clock.
Regis?
Here.
Scudder?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Miller's not here yet. Groom is excused, and so is Atwood.
And I'm here.
And sorry,
And we have a
Joe
quorum.
is here.
And we have a quorum. This is a work session to work with the administration about legislative priorities. We have a lay-down handout here. And I'll ask Jason to kind of walk us through. I see you have some itemized things here. So how would you like to approach this?
Well, what I thought I'd do is I would just give you guys a little bit of background on this document, and then walk you through all the items that are currently on there, because this is last year's guide. We know that things have changed a little bit since last year. And then you guys can discuss or ask questions as we go, and then make any recommendations or possibilities for future priority items.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for that method? Okay.
okay, so
Sorry.
So what you guys will see here is if you actually open your guide, you'll have this is our legislative priorities guide, and you can pull it out. You have like a little one sheet that's inside there somewhere. And up until a few years ago, our legislative priorities were, like everyone's legislative priorities, were put on just a piece of white paper that were given and talked over, and I'm sure Commissioner Regis, Board Member Regis could probably talk to that. And then a few years ago, we decided to, actually it's my first year here, we decided to create something that would hopefully help Seward stand out with both our federal and state legislators. And so we worked with our lobbyists over a couple of years to develop this document that would kind of highlight Seward's priorities. And that's actually why we have this one sheet right here, because sometimes people just wanted to see, like, we just want a list, the priorities and how much they're going to cost. If we want the details, then we can go look in the guide, but they wanted kind of this separate. And but in general, if you look at this guide here, it has kind of the Seward's information up front, just about us as a community, some general facts that legislators might want to know about our size, and kind of what we're generally made up of. And then the other piece in the back that was added after, I think, our second year was this map section back here. And what this does is it's really helpful for when they're talking with like a legislator about something like SMIC, they can actually see like where SMIC is and kind of can point to things and understand geographically. If we're talking about any type of improvement, they can point to it on the map and then look at a bigger map to do that. So anyway, so this is kind of this is, I believe, our third configuration, third year of doing it this way, and this next year will be our fourth. And so, but just in general, this document is made of a lot of like infrastructure pieces, and I think like public facility pieces that are either very outdated or kind of in need of repair, just because that's where we're at in this stage of Seward's time of like, we have most of our buildings were built, most of our infrastructure was put in right after the earthquake. And so that's kind of representation of that. So, but yeah, let's just go ahead and walk through this. So if you look at actually what would be page 5, we can see that the Little Creek tunnel is on here. And so we're going to keep that, they want us to keep that on there just to keep this in up front, even though it was funded in January 2022 through the Jobs Act, and so it's $185 million. I know that cost has actually gone up significantly since then, and so, but it is still kind of like a major project. So this is something that the lobbyists have asked that we keep this in here, even though it's been funded.
One touch on that, Jason.
Yeah, please do.
So also on this here too, the Corps doesn't have to go back before Congress to ask for more funds. They just got to go through and then put in the paperwork to get more funding, so it doesn't have to go back through Congress to get more funding.
So,
When I was there last year, that's what came up with that, so.
I had a question, maybe I missed hearing it, but is this only federal legislative priorities, or is it state and federal?
It's state and federal.
So this particular sheet doesn't necessarily break that down. It just says, that here's a project, here's a roughly the budget.
Yeah, but if you look on this one right here, inside here, it'll have like a heading of, like right under the heading of the minor description, it will stay like state and federal.
Okay.
And so, most of them are kind of state and federal, we're not gonna be real choosy where we can get our money.
Right.
But there are ones that are,
This, what we're looking at is just simply something that you could use for funding sources.
yes.
Whatever
Yeah.
funding sources
Yeah,
be available.
right, and primarily, this is obviously, we're looking to the government of whichever state or federal, so,
And I had one other question. I know we're gonna go through all of them, hopefully.
yes.
Are they listed in the priority that the administration recommends?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the priority was the starred ones that are on here. And I cannot remember at this point in time the reasoning for the priority of the order. There was lots of back and forth, and the lobbyists are the ones that actually tell us like, hey, we need to put this in this order for this reason, and so,
Norm?
Board Regis can talk to that, because he's actually the one that's used this document with our lobbyists in.
So, they didn't want to put like number 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 on there, because there might be funding for one other thing, and they didn't want it to stop it, so that's why they just put, like the Little Creek Tunnel, yes, it's important, it's up to top, but, all these other, we might get money for the, for the new water main, which I believe Congressman Peralta got us some funds there a year ago for some work done.
So it would be better just to call it importance rather than priorities.
Yes.
Because we went back and forth, we lettered them one time, and then they said, okay, you should take them off, because, because we did D instead of A first, and it all depends where the funds come from. That's probably the reason why they're not.
Who are our lobbyists?
Our state lobbyist is Chris Noss and Royce Weller, and we've been with them for, I don't know,
Forever, I can remember.
Yeah, for a really long time.
There was another gentleman here that, he retired, but we were working with through him.
Yep, and then our federal lobbyists, what's the name of that?
So the guy that originally,
Set.
with the federal lobbyists, he was from Seward originally, went to school with Gene Lewis and Gene Bardison and stuff, and then they moved to Washington DC, and that's kind of where we started there, so.
Yeah, but Seb is our lobbyist that we talk to for the most
Okay.
part, so,
Okay.
yep. And yeah, we do know that the construction the construction cost, the reason why Board Member Regis stated that which is important, is that that cost has gone up significantly as they're continuing to engineer it and really get into the deep levels of the cost of doing that tunnel.
Is that gonna affect them actually doing it?
No. All right.
So Jason, let me ask just one overall question, as long as we're talking about Laurel Canyon, Laurel Creek Tunnel. Is it presented as a public safety project? I mean, is that the major impetus, that should the current dike fail, there's a public safety problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so what we'll do is we can just kind of go through. So if we go to page 6, page 6 is funding for the construction of a new public works facility at a more appropriate site. This will free up significant land for residential development on the current public works facility. So obviously this is another facility that was built like just post-earthquake it's a very old building, but also too, just the size of equipment has changed, so we can't even park like equipment in there, and so it will save us significantly lower on maintenance costs because we can actually park equipment inside. We can have them thaw every night. We can grease them. We can maintain them better. And then obviously now, when that was put in, that was a great place for a public works facility. Now it's more appropriate for housing to go there. And so that's kind of we are at 65% design right now. That's basically complete, and we'll be moving to 95% design. And so it will be about as ready as a project can be for funding. And when we are looking for funding, we'll get into this more a little bit later, but we've been approached before by different legislators and saying, hey, do you have a project, do you have a fire station ready to go? And we said no, because we don't have a project ready. And so we're learning that we need to have things in a design phase at minimum 15% to be able to be kind of ready for funding. And so in the coming year, we're going to be getting all of our facilities to like a 15% phase to help us be able to access funding a little bit more easily and quickly. If we go on to page 7, we have expansion of water and sewer. We know that on both sides of the bay that we do need water and sewer expanded. We have some stuff here that we need, and over there we have a lagoon, but if you were to look on the utility map, we just need better expansion, so that way things like businesses and then also the development of those private lots can happen in the future. So we do, and utility expansion is very expensive, and so especially like water, sewer. And so we are looking for federal funding for that. On the bottom of page 7, this one will be removed, just because the jail is currently shut down, and we were getting funding from the state to do that. It was not full funding, and so there are other things in place now where they're taking care of people that need to be in a custodianship of some sort, and there is some talk of the state staffing our current facilities, but this is no longer a priority for us because we're no longer doing that in that business, and so we'll be taking that off for this next year, the jail will.
Has there been any updates from the police department on what sort of extra burden that is to run people over to the other facilities, or?
I would say the only kind of burden is when we're dealing with the males, adult males can just go across the bay over here, and that's not a problem. On the rare occasions that we have a juvenile or a female, we do have to do some transportation logistics, and we work with other agencies to do that, and so that seems to kind of be the burden there. But those are, I would say, they're non-common events. So yeah.
Just to clarify, the city administration and city council is no longer looking to fund a jail and sewer. Like, it's permanently closed. There's no talk of ever reopening a jail.
No. So, yeah. And part of that, just as a side note, is due that like the jobs that our jailers and people that work at Spring Creek are pretty much the exact same position. Their wages, their pay, their bonuses, all that stuff like that are significantly higher, and we just cannot compete with signing bonuses, and they can work all the overtime they want and all this kind of stuff like that. So we just had to we can't really compete with that over there. So that was kind of one of the major issues with that. So okay. So if you go to the next page, on page 8, again we have some aging infrastructure here, replacement of aged piping that we need just to kind of maintain our current infrastructure that's in place.
Jason, can any of the funding for like something like the Safe Drinking Water come from that infrastructure money? I don't remember the name of that act, but there's billions of dollars coming into the state of Alaska. Is the city getting any of that for some of this?
I would say yes, the city is getting stuff, but a lot of that was already like pre-allocated towards certain projects.
But it's still continuing to be allocated. It's a 5-year project or something. Are you saying that there's no room to apply for any of that funding anymore?
I think when they put out those, it's pretty much earmarked before it comes out, even though it has not been released yet. And so, we do have like ARPA money, Clean Water Act, and so we've done things with like, I think some of the clean water money was helping replace the tanks a couple of years ago. Yeah, I can't remember like where Clean Water Act money has, all of it's gone. I know that like some of it has gone to put in, like pay for the utility installation for our DRP. So we use that to install water and sewer for the housing developments that are going in. So a couple $1 million there. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of this thing that like all this money's coming out and we're all gonna get it, but it's like, it's not really the case of like, it's not free money, and it's usually been pretty like.
Is there a process for applying for that money? Or, I mean, I know you say that it's earmarked before it comes out, but I know that there's gotta be some sort of way that our state applies for that money.
And this actually is the way.
This is the way?
Yeah, so that like when Peltola, like we just got, for like the heat loop money, that we got, there's some SMIC money that came here. So when that money comes out, it's the legislators that get to kind of choose where those projects go, and then we actually have to apply for it.
I see.
Yeah, so this is kind of this is the process of getting access to those funds, so.
Jason, when you come up with, just using this particular project, the $4 million number, is that based on looking at 5 projects that total that, or is it just?
Like the $4 million number is because like this is from the Public Works Director, and he knows on like certain sections that need to be replaced in a certain time frame.
Okay.
And so it is based on like a known area or known areas that need to like, hey, needs to be replaced in the next 10 years because these are getting really old. And so that's what that dollar amount is, you know, we just take, hey, this is how much cost of construction and supplies are per foot, and this is how many feet we need replaced on these 2 sections, and so that's how we're kind of doing an estimation.
So that information, it'd probably be typical of all these. If a legislator were to ask, well, how this money will be used, there'd be some sort of supporting.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool.
So page 9, 10, and 11 are all, we did, City Council gave us money to conduct a feasibility study because we knew that like our fire department and our police department have very old buildings, and especially like if you look at the fire, I mean look at how our police department is stuffed into a room that's probably, their facilities are actually not much bigger than this one right here. If you look at right next door and how big their facilities are, and things like the fire department, the building's very old, it's decaying. When they built that in the 60s, the equipment, the apparatus were way smaller, and so anyway, both of those buildings need to be replaced, new locations, and so we did do the feasibility study, and we will probably be updating these figures a little bit because we do have better numbers, and so anyway, yeah, those are priorities for us of getting new facilities. And then if we get to page 12 and 13, this is kind of an overall SMIC infrastructure expansion and upgrade plan, so that way we can continue to do more business and better business on that side. And so you can see there's specific items that we've requested there so we can expand land and bring in more pedestals, provide some better lighting, security, that kind of stuff. If you have any questions on that front, Tony, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to answer that. And then on the next page, on page 14, we have a float extension project. Do you want to comment on that at all?
And if I could comment on that one, so we've been in talks kind of all summer with the engineer and about this project and how we want to tackle this. the original estimate for that whole project came in a lot higher than what we were hoping for. So we pivoted a little bit, and we're going to sort of table that expansion and just do one float off of Z Float, and then focus on redoing X and R Float, and strengthen that dock so we can tie up larger vessels in the winter layout months together and sort of capture some of that market that we've been turning away a little bit.
Then on page 15, we have sidewalk replacement, which is, if you guys notice, like sidewalk, conditions are hard in Seward and sidewalks. We need to get, we haven't done, we do have, the city has its own money set aside for some sidewalk replacements. And we didn't do any these last 2 years just because there was enough construction going on. And so when it comes to roads and sidewalks and that type of thing, and so we will probably be picking that back up again next year for continued that, but it's, we want additional money so that we can kind of be, replace them a little bit more quickly, right, and get that cycle going a little bit more quickly. On page 16, we had the heat loop project on there. Depending on, right now we're applying for into phase 2 of a DOE grant, which is due at the end of the month here. And if we're successful in that, this would then come off because that project would have gotten fully funded. So, and then on page 17, we have a new harbor master's office, which we are going to be doing a little bit of a feasibility study and looking at some concepts for that in the South Harbor uplands. And as another facility, again, just so many of our facilities are 60 years old and are lacking in kind of adequate spaces for the people to work and for the public to interact. And it'd be nice too, that the main thing there is we want a harbor master's office where you can actually see the harbor. That's a pretty important one, and one that probably sits a little bit higher so you can see out around things and see the channel. So we'll be moving that to the South Harbor uplands there and looking, we've talked with you guys about the whole development of that area and adding maybe some more boardwalk and more shops on that side. So, and then lastly, on page 18 is, it's kind of like a pie in the sky thing, but since the sewage lagoons were put in a very long time ago, just the technology has changed a lot, and you can do a lot smaller footprints for water treatment, and ones that are probably more environmental friendly and some of that kind of thing. And so that's eventually something that we would like to go to. So as of right now, those are last year's legislative priorities. Some of those are going to come off, so we'll probably put some new ones in there. We haven't fully developed what those are going to be quite yet, but we're happy to answer any questions on these projects or take any suggestions or recommendations for any other ones.
Well, first I'll ask board members, and then I'll ask the general public for questions. Anybody have any particular topics, questions, or comments?
Well, I can just say, like, on this handout, we took it to DC, and we handed it, so, like I said, Congressman Peralta was really impressed with this book.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't have this, they just explain things where she can actually see, which helped us get that funding. She put in the funding right away, we got a letter right away that she had put in the funding, so it's a book, but it shows exactly what we need done, and I think it helps them out, and, you don't want to get too many priorities out there. I think, if there's one we can add or something, replace the one that, but you got too much and it's too much. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of keep it down, I think, in my opinion. I think we keep it small and, pretty much what we have here, or replace the one, the jail one with something else.
Okay.
What is the process for this? So you go to DC every year with this basically wish list, right, of what things, what we need to have done, what our priorities are, and request the money. So how does that process work, and how often do we actually get any of the funding that we're looking for?
I would say that we get funding for something every year. How much that is, it just depends. You know, like we, for the heat loop, Peltola gave us $500,000 to contribute to that project. We were asking for $4 million, basically. So she gave us some to that. And I know that the harbor, I think it was the SMIC, is that you got?
250,000 for that project. So a small percentage, but you know, you don't need an apple all in one bite.
Right, and so we do get some money for that, when Murkowski is the one who pushed the Lowell Creek Tunnel through, and that was like obviously a significant project to get funded. That was, I mean, to get a project that is probably pushing $300 million right now, funded, is pretty.
Impressive.
Yeah, and, but we do know too that on the state level, a couple years ago, Clinton was asked like, hey, do you have a project ready? And we didn't. That's why we're getting all these projects ready, but for as far as fire station goes. But we do know that fire stations have received, on the state and federal level, some fairly large awards, kind of on a rotating basis. They just want to make sure that all these communities out here have adequate fire stations. And so for some of these things, it's kind of just a matter of time when the rotation comes around, or when we know that we get to work up on the list because some of our facilities are some of the oldest, and so we do know it's just a matter of time of putting this out there, and they will get at least some funding or partial funding. But I know that there's some fire stations, I believe, that have received like $10 and $15 million, which should not get us all the way there, but that gets you like a good chunk there. So.
Talking about the fire station, I remember our conversations about a possible extension at SMIC for that. Is that something that we'd want to try to tie into this at some point, as far as expanding Seward's capabilities?
Yeah, I think that it's probably something we should tie into like our priorities. We're trying to keep this one as like,
Yeah.
for that single structure.
Yeah, okay. Easier to.
Yeah,
sell
to
that.
try and get, and I think then once we get that one funded, then I think you move, as far as fire goes, we will definitely need, future planning, that's something we need to have kind of like and that's something actually that this commission could probably help us hash out a little bit, as looking to the future. Over there, we're gonna need kind of a multi-use facility of like, you're gonna need public works facility, a fire facility, a public safety facility, or kind of a conjoined facility at some point in time over there. Maybe the harbor, I don't know what your building looks like over there too, but with the opportunity for expansion over there, and those two very large, you know, it's 120 acres over there that's privately owned that, you know, could get opened up for developing. We will need more infrastructure over there too, and as the SMIC expands, as the Coast Guard gets over there, that would be something that we probably need to be having discussions on, and how we want that to look in the future.
Yeah, it seems like that's one of those things that will be here sooner than we realize, and
Yes.
Having that many people doing that sort of work, it really is, you know, that long response time is not what we want, so.
Right.
I don't know if there's a way to include that in here that's not too burdensome, but,
Yeah, well, and I think what would be good is as far as getting that on here is maybe that's something that, you know, we can have a discussions about, and as part of the SMIC development of having a you know, because that would be kind of part of that area over there of developing more concepts, and then we can work it onto this. So, yeah.
Is there any way to lean on the cruise ship industry to help pay or, you know, help support some of the, like, the infrastructure stuff, like utilities, since they're getting a new dock? I mean, if they're gonna have 3 of the larger cruise ships in a day, that's like 12,000 people getting on and 12,000 people getting off the boat at the same time. So, you know, like our town can potentially go to 24,000 people. So for septic and water and electric and all that stuff too, like it seems like it'd be fair to be, you know, like they're significantly increasing the use of that stuff,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, for the utilities anyways, to ask for them to chip in somehow or make that happen.
I think for,
Or do they already?
for the electric, I believe it's part of that project with the cruise ship agency and Turnagain Marine, they put in a substation over there.
Oh, okay.
I know the lines have been upgraded to take that substation, but I'm not sure where they're at with it.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Christine in a while. And then the water, they're pumping water over there now, so,
Yeah, I know that they do pay for water.
they pay for water.
And the CPV funds, the head tax funds, those are, we do get those, but also those are very much like, you can only use those for very specific items, and I don't know if, would those apply to,
It would apply for the substation, and it would also apply for upgrading the water line, because it has, anything that has to do with the cruise ship is authorized, and also harbor infrastructure.
What, sorry to interrupt you, but what about like our sewer system? I mean, maybe not specifically at the cruise ship docks, but they come to all these facilities in town and use the restrooms and the, you know, facilities in town,
So-
and that does add to,
So we could use the CPP money for restrooms, and also for, I believe it was allowed, we talked about it before, about for expanding the lagoon, getting more,
It's been talked about, if I might.
yeah.
A couple of years ago, the water department looked at being able to supply water, not to the new dock at that time, but to an increasing number of passengers. And that water, particularly with the project, there's going to be another new tank or a tank repair. There's adequate water. The weak spot in all this, assuming the electric is going to be probably separately funded, that's correct. I think that the project includes shore power, whether the city of Seward, how they interface providing that power, it's there, it's not completely solved. The problem is the sewer lagoon. And not so much the sewer lagoon, because Public Works has already testified that the lagoon actually has capacity, excess capacity. It's a matter of transmission, you know, getting it there quickly. And you're right about all the downtown, every toilet in downtown is going to be occupied. So, but that's growing pains. I don't know that this doesn't take that into account. $33 million for a new lagoon system would include the pipe along the Lowell Canyon Road, et cetera. But,
yeah, and like, we want to actually go away from a lagoon system to more of like a modern system where they, if you go look at, actually, I can't remember what the newest one on the peninsula is. Maybe it's sold out now. But, you know, you don't see these massive like lagoons anymore. They're usually a lot smaller and deeper, and then they're usually more contained, and a lot of them are processed. They have internal processing that takes care of all that stuff inside, so you don't deal with like smells at all, and it gets pre-processed. So I think that's what we want to move to, something way more.
they're higher tech, more expensive.
Yep, higher tech, more expensive, and what they put out is, you know, the water that we put back into the ocean is way cleaner. So I think that's what we'd like to move to in the future, and they're usually also a significantly smaller footprint. So.
I had a couple questions, Jason. The 15% to get projects, you know, visible. What sort of an economic burden is that on the city? I mean, that's pre-funding, funding.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is too, is we have kind of visible projects, but we need to have them to a stage of like engineering that shows that like the city's committed. And so for right now, we did, I think the feasibility study, can't remember what the total bill for the feasibility study was. But to move it from, we obviously know we need like a fire station, and we know like how big, we know all the operating pieces of that. So to take that to 15% is about $300,000.
Per project.
Yes.
And has council shown a willingness to support that?
Well, we actually have the fire department 15% on Monday's agenda. And the way we're looking at it too is that it's kind of the city's investment to spend like $300,000 to show that we're serious, so that we can get an award of like multiple millions, or get put on the list so that we can get put in rotation to have a new fire station funded, or mostly funded. So that's kind of like, you have to show you're serious and put money into the game and get it to that phase to be able to do that. So
Are these mostly, are these projects mostly all grants rather than partial grants, partial local bonding?
it's, I can't really speak to like the way that some places I've worked is they've got like a big chunk of like state or federal funds, and then they're able to supplement a portion of that with like a bond. So, or else another income source. I know that, I believe Juneau, and I don't know what portion of it, but I know that Juneau has funded some of their fire stuff with CPB funds because it's a lot of their job and it's sitting right there, and to be able to have that capacity to deal with that kind of stuff, and so.
Board Member Regis?
So touching the CPB, so Juneau's, they handle their own CPB, so they get, you know, a lot more money than we do, because they handle it themselves, but they're also a lot more cruise ships than we get. But, so we went to DC, we went to so many different places, but this one place we went to, can't remember what it was called, but there's actually, we can get mostly funded, and then they would actually give us a low interest loan that stretched out 30, 50 years. And it's not, that's a big loan. I mean, you stretch out that far, it's really not a lot, but they're out there. And then, and Kat has that information from that lady that we met over there. We met her the year before also, and then there's lots of loans up there. The one lady was supposed to come this summer. I don't know if she did or not. No, okay, so, but there's lots of, if you get a grant, you can also get a loan to help pay your percentage, because a lot of these small municipalities don't have it. So that's where they were at with that.
So it's a mix, the hybrid. Reducing, for the harbor master, you talked about reducing the expansion of the Z float. That would reduce the number of spaces available and revenue too, wouldn't it?
It would, but and in winter it would allow us to capture and double up on barges on that dock, so we would have that income coming in as well.
So that's the most critical expansion is what you're looking to do.
Yeah, we were having trouble coming up with an agreement that would allow us not to cut into that winter traffic. If that makes sense. The design, when that design was built, just our user group for the winter has changed. So that's what we came up with.
Okay.
And we can add that later, as this
Sure.
sort of evolves.
Sure.
So,
Well, these are just foot in the door kind of projects right now. I mean, all of these projects are the lead, hopefully, to something else.
we are moving forward with that, this project
Yeah.
currently. We're working on permitting and an RFP currently.
You're gonna go to facility grant program, the loan,
Passenger fees.
for CPB.
So without objection, the chair will ask whether the audience, Phil, has any questions? Okay, all right. Okay, well, there's at least one thing that I would like to see incorporated into this. Personally, Board Member Miller did talk about the infrastructure with the dock, which I think is a separate issue, but energy, there's very little here other than the heat loop project for energy, moving us into a better position for energy consumption. One of the projects that I've started to put my head to, or my thoughts to, is energy retrofit of public buildings. The heat loop project did recently have a data collection, what they call a blower door test for most of these city buildings, and we know that the library is actually a tight envelope, but the other buildings are very poor. without, without rebuilding buildings, there's ways to retrofit buildings and make them architecturally attractive. And this building, to me, is a perfect candidate for that, this particular building of the four, assuming the fire company would probably go away. This building, without having to build a $25 million replacement, could be retrofitted. I would really like to see something in our legislative package to encourage energy consumption, preservation of energy consumption. I guess that'd be a conservative way of putting it. So I don't know how to, if that would be a substitute for the heat loop project or an adjunct to it. Does that make any sense to anybody? Yeah, I talked to the mayor, Machicki, about the previous mayor, George, or whatever it was, had talked about retrofitting the municipal building in Kena. And Mayor McClure recognizes that when they're sitting in the building in the summer, they're sweltering, they can't cool it adequately, and in the winter, it's drafty, you have to put on sweaters. It was a prime candidate for a retrofit that didn't happen. But I think Seward's more farther thinking than that. I think it could happen here.
I believe this building was, at one time, I don't remember what year that was, but they were talking about redoing all the windows and redoing the boiler system and everything. And the conversation came up again, I think, from Clinton, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but the expense for doing this building was a lot.
10 million.
A lot.
Yeah, well, building a new building's a lot too. And you know, I agree, Norm, it's not an easy number to get your head around. All these retrofits are not cheap, but there's, I don't know, I'm not a climate denier. And I think that there are things we can do to improve our climate, and we should. Anyway, I didn't think anybody else is a climate denier. That wasn't what I was trying to say. I think where we can make gains, we should. So I don't know, but Jason, I just put that, and I started to talk to council about it, and periodically I'll be bringing data to my public comment portion. This is a great document. I don't know if anybody else is as excited about this as I am, but this is last year's. I hope you keep the basic format, the maps, the whatever you call it, printing. It's great, and I would agree with, if Norm or Tony were to present this, or you or Kat present this to somebody, it would be impressive. I want to go there, you know.
And that was kind of the goal, is to get people's attention that have not been here. And we will keep the formatting the same. We make tweaks every year just based on, like, added the maps. Just, that was actually like, I remember Christy Terry calling me from DC. She's like, you need to put maps in here. And I'm like, okay, we will do that. And tell me why and what the feedback. And so that's why we ended up adding the maps, just because they're helpful for conversations. And so in general, it's just gonna, I think it's just gonna get better. And hopefully we can just be another tool that we can use to help us do our projects, get them funded.
So take a look at it one more time. I think it kind of shows where the administration would like to lead us. And it'd be our opportunity to add our comments toward the council's benefit.
And can I, just so I can follow up, so I just want to make sure that the feedback, that I'm not missing something, but we have, Board Member Miller just talked about kind of that we have talked about CPB funds usage for infrastructure and the kind of the projects, and seeing how we can maybe, or capitalizing on the cruise ship industry to make sure that they're kind of carrying their weight as we look to maintain our facilities, because they do have a pretty...
They also traditionally like have a vertical like business plan, you know, like they they have their gift shops, their restaurants,
Right.
or stuff like that.
Yeah.
We get a boost from them, of course, you know, the shops in town do, but
Yeah.
it's not as significant as, you know, 24,000 people coming in a rent-a-car.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and they may not have that, like, they do, in like electrical terms, they have like a demand charge, because their use is like very high and very short, and they do have a
Yeah.
pretty significant impact. Then the other, the one we, Board Member Smith talked about kind of looking at city facilities at SMIC, kind of planning for that over there, looking at like fire, PD, public works, but something to make sure that we're addressing the facility needs on that side. And then energy retrofit of public buildings. So is there any other?
I'm sure you guys are on this with the police department section there. There's a lot of mention of the jail still. That needs to get.
Yeah, and at the time, so this was kind of outdated, because
Yeah.
at that time when they published it, so we thought that we were still gonna be carrying the jail, and so which is, and in a way it's good though too, because then we can actually take the jail out of the future plans, which then decreases the cost of that new facility, and also just, I think our insurance company is very happy that we're not dealing with the jail. So, you know, there's just a lot of
Makes sense.
stuff that comes from, jails are costly in a lot of ways, and kind of a high-risk situation, so.
So, yeah, so, you talk about energy, so I know that there's been talk too about, bringing LNG to Seward down through the railroad right away. Now that the railroad wants LNG for the newer cruise ships, so now there's maybe an opportunity to come down that right away, bring down the pipe down. If the railroad wants it at the new dock for these newer ships, then it's a time for Seward to maybe look at jumping and getting some LNG.
LNG. Could I ask Board Member Regis to expand on that just a little bit?
So there's talk about the cruise ships, the newer cruise ships are LNG, and they don't have a lot of emissions.
No kidding.
And, like the one tow ship going to Anchorage, I think it's all LNG.
They retrofitted that one.
Yeah, they're retrofitted to LNG, so now these cruise ships are doing that way, because of the emissions and everything
Sure.
that's being dealt on them. And railroad had mentioned it, I don't remember what meeting it was, about maybe possibly bringing LNG down, but they have the right of way, we couldn't get it down before, because they're using their right of way, it's the easiest way to get it down here, the right of way's there already. So if they're talking about that, we can maybe jump on board, and, you know, maybe start some infrastructure talk there, where we're gonna put the tank, blah, 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 stuff like that. But that, you know, you're talking energy, to me, LNG would be huge for Seward.
You're absolutely right, Norm. And getting out ahead of this and presenting this to the general public is going to be a function of government. Because when the opportunity to expand, to put in that gas line, when the streets were all dug up, the city, the residents could have approved it, but they didn't. And I think it's a great degree because they didn't have advance warning and there wasn't a good plan. But having a plan in place and then presenting it for approval makes a lot of sense to me.
I think just simply with the cost of heating your home these days, like just pitching that to everybody, like, you know, I've seen my brother has a house in Anchorage and I've seen his like heating bill and it's, you know, minimal.
Well, it's natural gas.
Yeah,
It's like 80 or 90 bucks.
Yeah.
Compared to.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of flexibility
and
with
that's what
LNG.
LNG is, isn't it? It's liquid natural gas.
It's liquid natural gas,
Okay,
yes.
so it's,
But Anchorage uses gasified.
Okay.
They don't.
But they can bring it down and then have a, you know, a building or whatever to change back to gas too.
yeah, okay. That's what I assumed.
Yeah. Fairbanks uses LNG. They transport it in a liquid form, which is more compact,
Yeah,
and then gasify it again.
yeah.
And there'd been talk about that in the past, in Seward. Oh, that's a great idea. Oh, I didn't know they ran those big boats on LNG.
That tow ship that goes in Anchorage is LNG.
Well, I don't know how far ahead our planners or engineers can be, but anytime a project is done, thinking about what future needs would be, makes a lot of sense, particularly if you're digging in the ground. I'm sure all of us have done something with some future planning. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it right now, but I'm gonna put another conduit in the ground, or I'm gonna put another PEX tubing in the ground, you know. Okay,
Just a question, does the city have some additions to this that we haven't talked about yet, or?
We haven't really discussed this formally quite yet. We'll be getting into that here shortly, but we have a list of like other projects. I mean, there's no shortage of projects here to be working on and to do, so.
well, hopefully on this page, you'll be striking the jail, and hopefully by the time you rewrite this, we'll know where we are with phase 2 of the heat loop.
Yep.
Those will both be, give you space for placeholders. I'd like to commend the city on this effort. That'd be Jason, Tony. It gives, I think, our board an opportunity to see what the vision is ahead. Help us make comments along the way, which I hope will benefit.
How does this all, and this is kind of maybe off topic a little bit, but how does this fit into the strategic planning? I mean, are they incorporating these kind of needs with the vision for the future, if that this is how this all works?
Yeah, so I think if we look at our comprehensive plan, that you look at the comprehensive plan, it's like our heart and soul of our community and the way we want it to look, what we need to provide good services. And so I think we have actually not updated our strategic plan since I want to say late 90s?
The comprehensive one?
No, strategic.
Strategic.
Our comprehensive plan we've done recently, but
I think it's earlier than that.
Yeah.
I think it's 80s.
And so right now the community development is working with planning and zoning, and they're getting ready to redo our comprehensive plan. And in the past, what we've done, we update our comprehensive plan every 10 years, which that's like way too long, like communities and the way things are changing. And so they're going to make it more of a living document, but as we build out this next round of comprehensive plan, then we're going to kind of basically build our strategic plan into that. They used to be two separate documents, because what we've kind of been doing is we've kind of been like, okay, it's been more reactive, I would say. Like, oh, our public works shop is failing, and then we don't do anything about it, or we never get the steam, or we never, like, whatever reason, you don't want to, I don't know where people were sitting in the past and the decisions they had to make and all that kind of stuff, but our strategic plan has been very reactive instead of being very proactive. And so we have to, I think it'll be good for us to take this comprehensive plan and then have a lot of strategic priorities that are built into that we can revise every year, and get out of this, like, we're going to update this every 10 years or every like 30 years when it comes to our strategic plan. And so I think that if you look at this document, it's mostly based out of reaction, that we like stuff is falling apart and we can't, it's costing us more to like service our breaking equipment that's becoming a burden because it's all frozen and you can't grease anything and you can't thaw it out, you can't fit it in there. And especially in the wintertime, I think that's a major toll. Like, I bet it'll be interesting to see how much we actually start saving on maintenance when we have a facility that we can actually park equipment into at night and they can like warm up and thaw out, and if they want it, they can grease everything up and they can maintain it really well. So anyway, to answer, I think it's the most honest answer, is just that we've been reactive in our strategy, and but we want to get in a place where we're thinking a lot farther ahead about energy and about planned replacement of things, and kind of how Board Member Smith talked about, we need to be thinking ahead over in SMIC and planning ahead for that, so that way we're not building that one of like, we should have had this 10 years ago type of situation. So.
when the Public Works building appears to be the one that's moving, is the farthest ahead in its planning, and likely gonna be the first one that'll be built. And if I remember, the city has awarded a replat, a contract to replat that existing site for home sites.
They didn't
No?
No.
reply, they just had a design of
Oh,
what
okay.
they wanted.
And that was for that, the property that was, where the Forest Acres Campground is that what you're talking about?
No, for the Public Works.
Where Public Work is now.
Oh,
They had the
sorry,
design.
where that Public Works is, yeah, so, so they did do like,
Preliminary design.
they did do kind of a preliminary design, they had utilities installed in there already, so that because they did not have a connection, they didn't have a connection for water and sewer in there, and so they wanted to make sure that they could get all that in there, and then we got some funding to do that, so that way when that building moves, it's pretty much like ready to go
Well, you answered my question.
okay, for residential development.
Yeah.
And so, and council did say, hey, this is where we're at now, we think that this is what we might like to see down there, and so we'll just put in this many hookups right now, not that you couldn't flex off of that, but they installed the water and sewer with connections.
Would the demo of that building be part of the budget to construct the new Public Works?
We haven't gotten into that phase yet, I mean, it's one of those things too, it's, before you go to demo it, you might just put out an RFP, like, come and get it. Because if someone wants to, like, those steel structures, that thing's fine. And so if someone wants to come take it apart, have at it. If not, a lot of times that's part of the RFP you put out for when you go to construction.
Okay.
So,
What about cleanup? I mean,
Yeah,
it's been a
right.
facility used for
yeah, so
maintenance of vehicles.
we already did the environmental study on there, and so they've already gone through, and that has already been done, so we are like good when it comes to cleanup. So yeah,
They did, and they already cleaned it up.
there's some contaminants, we already got that all sorted.
That's
Yeah.
forward thinking, to me. That's good planning.
Yeah, but no, it was, and that, we actually ended up really, it could have been a lot worse. We were all expecting it to be a lot worse, because on a site like that, you're like, what's down there? Where back in the day where people were draining their oil onto the ground, so.
Oh, I did have another question. In the SMIC development, I think it was infrastructure, did that take into account the JAG lease or the expansion of the JAG property activity?
I don't think that was really looking at that JAG area so much, other than we were looking at, their lease is now, this is an older map, we need to update this map, but their lease has now gone back to Olga. But a lot of these plans were just to look to kind of get that brushed out between Olga and Delphin, and look at putting in culverts so we can take the travel lift further back, deal with some drainage issues, making sure we have, as we're expanding, we have pedestals further back. Making sure, because right now we only have fire hydrants to a certain extent, making sure those are put out there as well, so that way we have a kind of a safe yard. And then there's some areas that we just need to, I think right there off of where the lift is, get some fencing and put some cameras in and that kind of stuff for that area that you guys use all the time. For cargo, and so.
So is that in this budget? Okay.
Yeah, and every year we go through these, I was just talking with Tony, that we go through these and look at the prices, say, is that still reasonable? And every year we kind of have to be, like, that's still good, this one probably needs to come up a little bit, that type of thing, so.
Okay. Anything more? Phil?
Well, I have something off topic.
Well, let me make sure.
At the end, I could.
We're all good? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the official here.
Oh,
Here, I even got some homework for you.
uh-oh.
For those who don't know me, I'm Phil Kaluza, local resident. Glad to hear a little discussion on the efficiency of our buildings, because yes, we could be doing a lot. even if it's only incremental, we don't have to do it all at once. So what I'm proposing here now is, as Bruce knows very well, I've been involved in kind of the heat pump world for a number of years, and have been testing and monitoring, and I'm not particular to any particular brand or type or style of heat pumps. I just believe that heat pumps are the way of our future, and we need to keep going forward. And so what I kind of worked up was basically an incentive to improve our heat pump adoption in town. We were doing pretty well until the big rate increase, and that pretty much took out all of the economic incentive for putting in a heat pump. Well, an alternative is to come up with a separate rate for heat pumps for residential folks, because utility has to, utility's been a monopoly forever, and heat pumps are competing with oil. So all of a sudden now they're in a competitive market. It's like, do you want to sell electricity for a little bit less, or do you want to sell none? You want to make some money or no money? And so this proposal basically says, hey, some money is better than no money, and all the other benefits that go along with, a reduced rate for heat pumps would make a lot of sense. So I'm kind of hoping you guys, I can use you as my sounding board, because I'm looking for the political nuggets that need to get put into here, and some of the more economics, but of course being short and simple is always best in presenting this. So I got my information on that back there, my email address. If somebody's got some comments or something we should add or delete, maybe more on the political side than the economics and stuff, but I'd appreciate it. If anyone's got any immediate questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. I'm just looking for feedback later.
I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to know what Phil has done in the past. And I have looked at this prior to today's meeting, and this is sort of a build-out with some modern or some recent developments of the same philosophy. And I think in the past, PACAB has endorsed energy efficient projects. We're not, this meeting can't come out of a meeting with anything except comments. And certainly responding to Phil as a citizen, anybody can do that. I would say that I believe that the improvements that have made to the City of Seward electric utility have enough capacity to take care of this increase in consumption. That was something that was brought up in the past. If you go electric heat pumps instead of liquid fuel or even gas, you have to have the capability to supply that electricity. And it appears that our current and our new administration at the electric department is continuing on the upgrade of the utility, and it should be sufficient.
I think it's important, when we distribute all these little heat pumps across town, we're not really required to increase our, as Bruce said, our capacity is pretty much there. Now, I can see down the road there's going to be some more residential transformers needing to be upgraded when whole neighborhoods kind of go down that path, but they're all going to be incremental. I mean, heat pumps don't contribute to our design, our peak loads like other businesses and stuff do. So there's a lot of weeds that one can go into and add to this. I was just trying to keep it as short as possible. But yeah, no, it's a win-win-win. I mean, the environment benefits, the utilities increases their sales and their revenues, it increases the value of their assets by increasing the revenues and sales, and the consumer gets a significant reduction in their energy costs, heating their buildings. I mean, it's a triple, it's a hat trick. I don't know of anything else that's as good. So again, I'm looking for some serious comments on how we should really proceed with this and what the roadblocks look like. That's all I have.
Thank you. A question for Phil?
Thanks, Phil, for bringing this to us. It's a different take on kind of the rebate program that we'd kind of like to see. Another thing with the cruise ship electrification, that's a summer peak load, and this kind of balances that out in the winter. So I think the utility should be excited to have something that kind of stabilizes their year-round load and they can count on their demand. The economics, of course, were flipped on heat pumps. It's in my line of work is incredible how much it changed. Nobody could have foreseen that, how fast it flipped. And kind of getting that kind of corrected and getting more of this technology in town to help our, keep that economy going, keep the technicians employed and installing new ones, and the clean heat around the neighborhoods. It's a quality of life improvement to have heat pumps versus the various oil-fired devices that we have. It's undeniable once you've experienced it, so thank you so much.
And Ben, your comment about the rebates, I mean,
Sure.
and that is
Sure.
why I'm
We need to be careful because this is not on the topic of, like, we're getting into this whole other
Yeah.
conversation, and this is not on the agenda, and so we cannot actually have a conversation about this. If you guys, like, we're happy to have it in like another work session, so you can deal this out fully, but because this was on legislative priorities, we can't have this whole other, like,
Okay.
work session conversation here.
Okay.
So,
Response.
Well, the presentation from the citizen without comment from the board.
yeah.
And it's available, Phil will be available to take comments. And I think we need to look again at what council gave us as a priorities, because this was a little bit more open in the past, and I think they did get a little more specific about where we can go. We'll take a look at it, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I think as a work session, we'll just go around the table for any comments.
I don't have any comments.
So Miller, Alderman Smith.
I guess, yeah, my response to the citizen comments is noted there, and then this, every year we review this. It's an impressive document. I look forward to seeing the revisions, and I agree with Board Member Regis's take on it. Keep it simple and to the point, and also the city's work on getting these design concepts ready, and having that, that defined investment to show we're serious about it. That's very forward-looking, and it really shows that the city is actually working for the best interest of the community, so thank you for that.
Okay. Board Member Regis?
Yeah, I just like, just keep it simple, but I just wanted to let you know, so, something off topic. So last week I was up at the VA clinic and I was sitting and waiting for a ride because I caught a ride after I was supposed to pick up a vehicle that wasn't ready. Anyway, so I was sitting in the VA clinic, there was a group of folks in there and they were touring from someplace else, and they actually, this conversation of Seward came up and they were amazed how clean our town was and how good everything looked. I know they probably didn't see everything, but it was really, I was impressed that they were actually talking how clean we were compared to other United towns. So anyway, I just want to say that it was clean and nice, and just want to throw that out there.
Board Member Sutter?
This is a really nice book, and I think it does say a lot about Seward and makes it look like a great place to be, like you said. So I want to thank the city for putting this together and for sharing those legislative priorities. I look forward to learning more about how this whole process works. That's all I have.
Okay, I've already weighed in on what I think that benefit is to us, and for administration bringing it to us, and the work that you guys have all done to already implement some of the things in the past. And looking forward, I think that's a true mark of civilization, is not being reactive, as the manager said, being forward-looking. And I will say, because it's on the agenda, the heat loop project is moving forward, as Jason mentioned. We hope to have well, we will be making a presentation in mid-October for a decision to award this project for what they call the down select group, phase 2, which would be the build. And that decision, our presentation will be in October, and we hope to have a decision before the end of the year, which would allow us to move forward in 2025 with construction. As Phil mentioned, the electric rates did change the economics slightly. There's no question with that. But in this case, this is the city owning the library, taking out of one pocket, putting it in another. So it's not quite the same as a general population residents, but nonetheless, a benefit is a benefit. And we don't step over a penny to pick up a nickel. That's the way I learned it. You pick them both up, and there's a lot of pennies here. Okay, nothing else? We'll adjourn. 111. Thank you.